You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
If you've been hearing a lot about or reading a lot about Mezcal lately, it's because Mezcal is having a moment. So what's the deal? Well, it's often handmade using pre-industrial methods. It's not cookie cutter like so much of what we eat and drink these days. And when you taste it, if you know how to taste it, you'll recognize exactly that. Recognize the heartbeat that is the lifeblood of this movement. But the growing interest means to fulfill demand, corners are starting to be cut. Well, that's not the case with Mezcal Ultramundo, an exceptional small batch mezcal from Durango. It's made from wild Lamparillo agaves harvested sustainably from a 24,000-acre ranch that's home to purple nopales, wild desert tortoises, all manner of biodiversity. And Mezcal Ultramundo never harvest more than 80% of their mature agaves. They ensure that every harvested plant is replaced in its wild setting by a next-generation seedling. If you want to taste the wild deserts of Durango, Mexico, taste Mezcal Ultramundo and know that with every sip, you'll also be protecting those wild deserts.
Hey, Gringex Chicagoans. I'm Linda from Cena Secreto. If you are in the neighborhood, you should look up Cena Secreto on Instagram. See if I'm hosting any dinners or tastings upcoming. Can't wait to see ya. Seyna Secreto. Secret with an O.
I'm Lou Bank.
I'm Tracy Vowell.
And this is Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Greek ex-bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. Tracy, you just said you're Tracy Vowell. You did not say that you're a farmer.
I did not say I'm a farmer.
Do you not feel like you're a farmer?
I am a farmer. I'm a vegetable farmer here in Illinois.
Okay, so you do feel like a farmer. You just like to feel like you're more than a farmer.
I kind of do, yeah.
Yeah, and you are. But today, we're going to be talking about farming, Tracy.
Let's go with farming.
Okay, so one of the things that I hear quite often when I am out and about at bars and restaurants that focus on agave spirits, one of the things that I'll hear often from the people working there or the people drinking there is that there are some kinds of agave that can't be farmed.
I don't have any experience with that, but I can see where that would be a realistic thing to say because some varieties I know take 6, 7, 8, 10 years to mature.
Oh, goodness, even longer than that, sure, for sure. But that's different than not being able, that's not being able to efficiently farm, right?
Okay. Then what do you mean by not being able to farm agave? That you just can't bring it into a behavioral process where it will work with you?
Yes, that is exactly what I believe these people mean. They've been told by brand marketing people for years. Oh, well, like Tobalá was the big one for the long time.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that one is on Ron Cooper. You know, all credit where credit is due, but all blame where blame is due.
Yeah.
And he went around telling people you cannot farm Tobalá. It only grows wild and it only grows on cliff sides. And you know, one of the programs that we have at Sacred is providing free agave seedlings, so grown from seed. Free agave seedlings to mezcal-related families or agave-related families around Oaxaca. And those seedlings are 100%, I shouldn't say 100% at this point, it's like 80% Tobalá.
Okay.
And the program is run at this agricultural middle school in Zachila, where the teacher, his family has been farming Tobalá for something like 25, 30 years at this point.
Well, then it's clearly farmable.
Then it is clearly farmable. But I think what you said is slightly nuanced to that. And I think it's the relevant point here and the relevant distinction that gets lost amongst people who don't understand the details of something, right? So I take a seed, I germinate the seed, I grow the plant. The plant reaches maturity, and I harvest it. And then, or I let it go to seed and I replant it again. But what was the phrase you used?
Oh, I don't know. That was a couple of minutes ago, Lou.
It was something like it's inhospitable to farming.
Well, yeah, that would work. I don't think that was it, but I don't recall. If you're going to grow something that takes years to mature,
yeah.
And my understanding is that with almost all agaves, this is a problem.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a reality. I mean, if you want to call it a problem.
Okay,
but yeah.
a reality. But for the sustainability of the farm that is producing that agave, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Because if you're only making income every 7 years, every 10 years, every 15 years, what you going to eat?
Sure. Well, there's that. But then there's also the idea that you can cycle it through. So it's like if you plant it every year, and it doesn't like the agave that I've seen, it's never like an entire crop will reach maturity at the exact same time. But your point's not lost on me that there is the problem of figuring out how much you can expect in any given year, basing your income on that, which is why not all, but most agave farmers that I've met will have some other crop on the side as well. And sometimes not even on the side, but intermingled.
It makes sense to me. It's a lot easier to maintain things that are closer together.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because when I hear inhospitable, I think of and I guess I didn't hear it. I just heard it in my head. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So, but when I think of the word inhospitable, my head goes back to the huitlacoche that you used to grow. Boy, you just had a look in your you just felt pain. I did. Was that a bad memory?
It's not a bad memory. I'm disappointed that we can't do huitlacoche anymore, and at the same time, I am relieved that we can't do huitlacoche anymore.
Okay, I'm going to need both of those.
After 9/11, rules about moving various and sundry, particularly mycological samples of things around became illegal.
Oh.
So, with a number of things, Eustelago metis, which is the actual name of the fungus.
Say that name again, please.
Eustelago metis.
Eustelago metis. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's the funny names again.
the loose translation for that is corn smut.
Okay.
All right. And because, we tend to function agriculturally in a very narrow band, and the people of Mexico tend to function in a very wide band.
Yeah.
Many parts of the corn plant are used there that are not used here. And Eustelago metis, or corn smut, is a naturally occurring disease in corn. It's actually a mushroom that grows where the kernel should be in ears of corn.
Oh, I always assumed it was like a body snatcher and it jumped into the kernel of corn and took it over.
In the process that we used, and let me back up a little bit. In nature, things like animals running through your corn when it is silking, but it has not yet pollinated, or a particularly heavy rainstorm can bounce because every shovelful of soil in the New World has Eustelago metis in it.
Oh.
Except for where it's just too cold for corn to exist.
Oh.
It's everywhere.
Wow. Okay, so
And we did quite a bit to help that.
What do you mean?
By moving corn around. We moved the disease with it.
Oh, okay.
That's why we have smut here, and they have huitlacoche in Mexico. One of the things that we never realized, or one of the things that we never took an interest in, because it is extraordinarily difficult to control this stuff, and it is highly perishable.
Yeah.
You have just a couple of days to get it off the cob and gone before it starts to fall off the cliff. So as Americans, we don't like doing that kind of work.
Sure.
We're going to go with the corn. It's not nearly as profitable, not nearly as valuable, but cleaning Huitlacoche is not a fun task.
Okay, got it.
And because it's so delicate, it's very difficult to do. It doesn't fit into the commodity structure of rough and tumble produce.
Huh.
You know what I mean? You cannot take a bunch of ears of corn that are flushed and ready with Huitlacoche and put them in a box and put them into commodity sales.
Right.
And because our market is constantly looking to refine that system into as few different items as they possibly can,
Yeah.
something as delicate as Huitlacoche is not worth it to them, even though at the height of it, we were selling Huitlacoche for $32 a pound.
Wow.
It is not an unprofitable crop.
And what do you sell corn for by the pound, just for comparison?
I don't even know. I mean, an ear of corn is generally, an ear of sweet corn is generally just under a pound, between 3/4 and a pound. And if you buy a single ear of corn, you're going to give us $1.50 for it.
Oh, okay.
We grow good corn.
Okay, yeah.
You know, but that doesn't touch the value of Huitlacoche. But the fact of the matter is that when that stuff's ready, it's going to shut down your farm. You're not harvesting anything else. You're not weeding anything else. You're lucky if you can get your irrigation on and off, because it's everybody that works at the farm, all hands on deck, cleaning Huitlacoche, getting it processed and delivered or frozen, because the window is that tight.
Huh. So you could have it here. Like I thought you were in essence going to tell me a story of we can't bring the biological substance that we have to put into the ear of corn up here from Mexico because of 9/11.
Oh yeah,
but that's not what you're saying.
You know, for a period, I don't know if it's still the same. I imagine it probably is, because once we decide we don't like something, we don't hear anything else about it.
Yeah.
But when we stopped, the University of Illinois were the people that supplied us with the isolates for the fungus. Right? And we would mix that up and cook it and feed it potato starch, and it would get all excited. And then you literally go and shoot up each individual ear.
Wow. Okay.
With the mycological material, so that you can then 16 days later pray that it's not raining, because it's done. And it's time to go get it. Not 15 days, not 17 days.
Gotcha.
You know, I mean, we have, thanks to Snook Paddock at the University of Illinois, there is a process.
Yeah.
It's not an easy process. It's very labor intensive. And I'm not joking about how quickly you have to work once you actually have the mushrooms. They are not like buttons or creminis or portobellos or whatever. They're far more delicate and far more perishable.
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, it doesn't go down the path that I thought it would go down to compare it to agave. But I guess then, so let's back up to that for a second. And let me ask you, is there any plant that you've run across that you found that's growing wild in nature that can't be farmed?
Oh, there are some.
What?
I can't say that I have personally struggled with it, because we tend to stay in the agricultural realm.
Yeah.
But there are things that are very difficult to grow.
Yeah.
You know, that require a very specific, like the Huitlacoche. I mean,
yeah.
Our period of time for inoculation is about 10 or 12 hours. If the corn starts to drop pollen, it's going to make corn.
Yeah.
And I no longer have a host.
Huh.
So if I decide on Friday afternoon that we're going to do this on Saturday morning while the corn's deciding, I'm going to go ahead and pollinate first thing in the morning.
Yep.
Game over.
Yep. Huh. You know, and somebody else told me once that they've been, and I can't remember who, so if you're listening and you remember, just send me a text or an email or a WhatsApp. But somebody else had told me that they'd been trying to domesticate a specific variety of agave for more than a decade, and they could continue to grow it, but the end result of what they were growing wasn't consistent from one harvest to the next.
It's not getting something it needs.
Well, by not consistent, I don't mean like sometimes it dies. I mean, it doesn't taste the same from one harvest to the next. And I would guess it actually had to have been more than a decade, because, you know, it's a plant that would take 8 to 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds to me like it's going to be primarily weather related.
Huh. Which would make sense, because you're talking about a plant that runs that.
If you haven't moved it to a new environment. You haven't bred it in some way to change its makeup.
Yeah.
It almost has to be either the farmer or the plant, facing some situation. I can tell you that, my farm is very small. And, like right now, there are only 2 of us working there full time with a little bit of help.
Wow.
With weeding and whatnot. We lose things in the weeds. We try not to, but everybody does. If they don't, they lie.
Yeah.
When we lose a given crop in the weeds and we were not able to uncover it, when we go back there to see if there's anything to harvest, it's different. It's not only physically different to look at, but the flavor is changed. Where carrots that grow in the right amount of space without a lot of competition will be sweet and rich, and the roots will be straight, and they'll be beautiful. Carrots that suffered with other weeds, other plants too close to them that longed for water, longed for nutrients, longed for their time in the sun.
Grow up to become juvenile delinquents.
And they don't taste as good.
Interesting. They don't taste as good. They don't taste as sweet.
They don't taste as sweet. The texture might be a bit more firm. They might actually start to get tough. And more fibrous because they're fighting.
Yeah.
The goal in agriculture has to be for us to try to provide the most forgiving and nutritive environment for those plants to grow in as possible. We have more developed systems to help us with those things here than the typical agave farmer has in Mexico. First, they're growing in a much more rough and ready environment. Water is a consistent issue in many parts of southern Mexico.
Oh, yeah. Actually, even in central Mexico and northern Mexico.
Almost no matter where you go, they've either got too much or too little, or they're constantly swinging back and forth between the two.
Yeah.
As we do. We had 2 winters in a row with 15-inch snows. We haven't seen another snow like that in 4 or 5 years. For us, that's going to change, maybe not as dramatically as some other things, but, snow is the great nitrogen fixer. It catches nitrogen in the air, brings it down to the ground, and holds it there until the snow melts. If you get a 15-inch snowstorm, you're holding a whole lot of nitrogen right there just above the surface of the soil. If it melts slowly and it's able to creep into the ground and not run off, then you've got a natural giant nitrogen boost that just hit your land.
Had no idea. That's so cool.
Snow is one of the most efficient things for catching free nitrogen in the air and returning it to the ground.
God, so we should grow more snow is what you're saying.
Kind of. I don't want to say it too loudly, but kind of, yeah.
Cool. Well, listen, I think that's a good point to wrap on is grow more snow.
Grow more snow.
Hey, Tracy, thanks so much for joining me on this agave road trip, and I hope to catch up with you soon.
All right, that sounds good. Thanks for having me, Lou.
Hasta pronto. You've been listening to Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. We're blessed with sound engineering by Roy Sierra and a theme song performed by Gabriel Oliveira and Marco Ricos. Sign up to become a road tripper and listen to more episodes at agaveroadtrip.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know. And if you hated it, well, I'm sure you'll let us know that too. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Agave Road Trip. Agave Road Trip is a production of 10 Angry Pit Bulls, Inc. Agave Road Trip is powered by Simplecast. Thank you for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. To subscribe to the Heritage Radio newsletter, enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with Heritage Radio Network on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find Heritage Radio Network at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization using the power of education
educational storytelling about food to build a more equitable, resilient food system. Heritage Radio Network couldn't do that without support from listeners like you. Become a part of the world's most innovative community today. Subscribe to the shows you like. Tell your friends. And please join the Heritage Radio Network family by becoming a member. To become a member of the Heritage Radio Network, click on the beating heart of our homepage. Heritage Radio Network can become addictive. Programming you hear on Heritage Radio Network might lead you to eat, drink, and listen to more programming on Heritage Radio Network. If you drink, please do not drink and drive. Drink responsibly, drive responsibly, eat responsibly too, and listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly. To listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly, wear protective earbuds. While wearing protective earbuds, do not drive, do not walk either. Sit in a comfortable chair. If that comfortable chair has a hard seat, please remember to stretch every 30 minutes. If you stretch every 30 minutes, please stay within your defined stressing capacity. And consult a doctor who specializes in stretching. If you don't have a doctor, maybe Dr. Ryan Acock, the Cocktail MD, can help you out. Thanks for listening.
Agave road trip out.